sooner did we agree to leave than Andrew Klavan of the Daily Wire did an entire episode stating that the reasons that I was leaving was because I was anti-Semitic and I was engaging in a type of anti-Semitism that was hard to pin down. And
what's up, y'all? Welcome back. So this situation with the Daily Wire, Candace Owens, this is never going to go away. Okay, eventually it will, right? But this is one that people are talking about and they're not going to stop asking questions. Candace just popped up with her new show, not popped up, but she found the new show is out and she's been addressing a lot of things. And obviously she's going on interviews promoting the show. And we all know the first question, what happened with you and the Daily Wire? And this is what happened on the Piers Morgan show. There's a few other things that happened. We'll look at that, but they got into even almost like a little bit of a shouting match. I thought it was pretty funny. So let's go ahead and get into it.
And that is why in my first episode of launching my independent podcast, I hit back pretty hard at him because I think it's pretty despicable, first and foremost, as a colleague who I had a great relationship with, to have engaged in that, knowing that I was not at liberty to say anything. I thought it was a very underhanded, disgusting tactic, and I responded in force.
I want to play you what Ben Shapiro told me when I asked him about this on Uncensored. One of the consequences of this war has been a lot of very high passions on both sides, a lot of angry disagreements. You and your company have been at the center of a very high profile one at the moment with Candace Owens, who's now left Daily Wire. Was she fired or did she leave of her own volition?
I'm not going to speak to this topic, Piers.
He's always so excited with that part. Like you can tell he's like really excited. Like, I'm not going to speak to that. Piers, like, and he's smiling, like, like just man. The reason too, again, like Daily Wire is, you can say, the captain of the mainstream conservative punditship. So what is conservatism mainstream about? Is about freedom. We have freedom water, freedom, right? Free speech. And then this happens, right? So it's like, like, all right. It just feels like, again, that there is just hypocrisy. Absolutely. That's what it is.
At all.
At all. The only thing I will say is what I've said all along with regard to Candace or with regard to any of our other hosts. I am not in hiring and firing position with the Daily Wire. I'm a co-founder of the Daily Wire. I'm a co-owner of the Daily Wire. I'm not actually in management. And as far as the free speech situation, what I will say is that no company has the obligation to literally pay anyone. The Daily Wire is a publisher. It is not a platform.
Do you agree with that, Candace?
Agree with which part?
Well, okay, any of it.
Well, I think that it's interesting, and I'd love to sit down with and debate Ben Shapiro on a number of topics, particularly cancel culture, because I know that he's...
Guys, if you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and the notification bell. It really helps out a lot. And thank you always for watching.
Made some comments in the past that he believes that publishers, platforms should allow people to have different ideas. And so those particular comments to me sound in contrast to what he has said in the past, but I can't speak on behalf of him, obviously. I personally believe that media companies are healthier when you allow people to have different opinions and allow people to debate those opinions. Personally, I love to see a debate between two people. And so I can only tell you what my perspective is and can't really speak for him.
I love to see a debate between two people too. And it would have been very good to see that debate between Candace Owens and Piers Morgan. And I think that at the end of the day too, their behavior of placing a gag order on her simply because they were talking about the debate and everything. But the gag order that was placed, it was like they lured people into like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a debate. And then, at the end of the day, the whole time that was never the plan. So that's not good. It was done almost, you can say it was like, the way it was done, it just felt sneaky. It felt conniving. Like, why don't you just say that you weren't going to debate Candace Owens, or why make us all think that that was going to happen? And then that's really what they did. And then they used it again. They used it to get the gag order on Candace. So it's just like, and then again, it is very what's the word I'm looking for? Disingenuous and hypocritical. It's just fake. Like, oh, we believe in free speech. These people, their platform is built on these conservative values of like free speech. But at the same time, when it came down to it, it's like, well, you don't agree with me on this position, so you're out of here. And I thought that was absolutely crazy. I just thought it was crazy watching that happen. I'm looking for the clip here too, where where Candace basically came for Ben Shapiro, for Piers Morgan.
I could have never imagined the amount of dead Palestinian children that I would see on my X feed since then.
It's horrific.
It's heartbreaking to me as a mother. It's horrific to me that the media seems almost complicit in the dehumanization of Palestinians.
So this was also a lot of the reality that Candace was speaking about, a lot of the unspoken truth that Candace started speaking about on her channel. Although that last episode, she didn't know was going to be her last episode. But when she made this statement about this nation of Israel, I don't know why she didn't think that was going to be her last episode. But I mean, hey, so this is her going back and forth a little bit with Piers Morgan again. And just his reaction to the things that she's saying, it's kind of weird to me, but okay.
And I will not be on that side, because at the end of the day, the hit pieces, the name calling, the anti-Semitism, the psychopathic language that seems to be coming out of people means nothing. And I want to make sure everybody knows this, right? At the end of the day, you are going to have to account to God for the things that you allowed, the things that you were complicit in, and for the things that you did not have enough courage to state.
Okay.
The amount of death of Palestinian children has been unacceptable, full stop.
Okay.
Bibi Netanyahu, in my view, should not be given an invitation to Congress. I think it's unacceptable.
I agree.
Unacceptable.
I don't
and to
think
be clear, for whatever the reason,
be leader
when it comes to the topic of Israel,
and to be honest, I agree too. But we talked about the Israel lobby here on the channel, so AIPAC, all of that. So, guys, take a look at that. Our elected officials are bought and paid for by these lobbies. So, whatever. They do whatever. It just doesn't matter.
It does seem that journalists are fearful to critique Israel.
Well, I'm not.
Why is that? Because I would say, Piers, that you too, you seem a little fearful to critique Israel and to want to always seem that you're coming across a little bit understanding of everything they're doing. What is it that makes journalists, corporate journalists,
let me respond,
fearful of saying, hey, Israel has done a ton of things that have been very wrong?
Yes, and I have said they're wrong. I think Netanyahu should go. I think half of that cabinet should go.
Okay, at least he says half of the cabinet. It's just so this is not a geopolitical channel, but just so you know, even if Netanyahu goes, the mission would still live on. I mean, we're about to be a year into this, so we're not going to do the discussion necessarily here right now, but we are about to be a year into this, guys. So let us not act like, that this is normal. This is not normal, and they're not two different armies, soldiers meeting on a battlefield and fighting things out. Okay. I think that 8 months later, we can say that, okay, there are bombs that are going off, and just everybody's just getting hit by the bombs, children too. Now, anywho, she's right to ask that question. And it is true. Come on, let's keep it real. If you can't see it by now, you're not serious. But I don't have to convince anybody. Let's just see how Piers Morgan answers.
Some of them have definitely been using genocidal language. I think a lot of what Israel's been doing the last few weeks is completely unacceptable. But ultimately, I also, from the start of this conflict, believe that Israel not only had a right to defend itself after the terror attack on October the 7th, but a fundamental duty to its people. And here's where I'm just curious about your tweeting through this procedure, this whole war, because on October the 7th, you didn't tweet anything. You didn't tweet anything on October the 8th. And October the 9th, you tweeted, so much world peace ever since we got the orange man out of office. So glad the adults are back in charge. A lot of people say, well, if you care this much about innocent people being killed, why didn't you say anything when 1,200 people were massacred to death in the most brutal, barbaric manner in this awful terror attack by Hamas, and nearly 7,000 more were wounded, some of them catastrophically and irreparably. Why did that not compel you to say anything?
Well, first and foremost, Israel's a foreign country. So typically I talk about topics that have to do with America. Secondly, you're only quoting my Twitter feed. I'm also on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. I also had a daily podcast in which I did respond directly about what happened and called the events horrific multiple times, said what Hamas did was absolutely horrific. So you're using a snapshot of my Twitter feed where you're acknowledging that I didn't tweet for days to suggest that I didn't have anything to say about what had happened. Now, to be clear, I am consistent on all matters. I do not want America involved whatsoever in anything that is happening in Israel. I don't want my dollars sent over to Israel. We should not be supporting Israel. Obviously, Thomas Massie has done a lot of work showing how it doesn't even make economic sense that we have so much debt and yet we're sending money over to support Israel. And the biggest issue, by the way, that I have with Israel and talking about them being above reproach is the fact that they are supplying the arms to murder Christians. Okay. In Armenia, the oldest Christian country in the world. And yet nobody talks about that for whatever reason.
She really talked about a lot. Go ahead, Candace. You know, and it's not just because, like, you know, Armenia is like the oldest Christian, you know, population, you know, in the world or whatever. There's just the backhanded deals and the things that are made, and there's just countless innocent victims. And once again, we are tied to the hip with these people. And we'll be discussing the Thomas Massie and Tucker Carlson interview too, because that's one that's very important that all Americans should hear. All Americans should hear. They should hear it. You know, let me put it this way. If you're an American who's on this side of the game and you are watching like commentary like this, then you should know about the Tucker Carlson Thomas Massie interview, which we will talk about. But Candace said a lot there. I mean, there's just, I mean, like, I fully agree. You know, we have problems of our own here. But she makes it clear, don't send the aid there because we're getting dragged into a lot of their issues. Again, this is not a geopolitical discussion necessarily, but she said a lot.
Reason, it seems to be the circumstance that when Jewish people die in Israel, it's wall-to-wall coverage. But when Christians die all over the world, nobody talks about it. Everyone wants to correlate everything to World War II. Everyone wants to talk about Adolf Hitler, and rightfully so, he was a horrific person. But nobody wants to talk about Henryk Yagoda, right? Nobody wants to talk about the Bolsheviks. Nobody wants to talk about the Christian Holocaust. I am tired of the media, exhausted of the media not speaking about what is happening to Christians all around the world. And it is especially horrific while at the exact same time that it is happening, the slaughter of Christians in Armenia, the arms being supplied by Israel, that the media turns the other way and says, oh, okay, but what about what's happening in Israel? So you know what I'm asking for? Actual equality. Okay, because it seems like this is like a special category, the special relationship that we have. I'm a Christian first, okay? And so my concerns are going to be with what's happening to Christians all around the world because it is us. We are the number one most persecuted religion in the world. And all Christians watching this need to realize the time is now to start speaking up because we have been silenced about the things that are happening to us for a very long time. And the media is very clearly not our friend. When there is wall-to-wall coverage of Christians being killed, in Armenia, Christians being killed in Nigeria, and the treatment of Christians in America and all across the globe today, then you ask me if I will use my platform and I will use my voice to speak about what's happening in Israel. How about that?
Okay. I think that's a perfectly reasonable point to make.
That is. Shout out to Candace. That is. And for the person who's going to watch this and say, oh, it's not about religion. It's not about religion. But listen to the point that she made. Just listen clearly to the point that she made. You know, because like, just listen clearly. I don't even have to explain it. There's no need to convince. You listen and you pay attention. Now, again, like I've said before, Christians expect the persecution. So, you know, we just sit back and we don't, you know, necessarily talk about it in this way. But I'm not mad at one that does bring it up like this. This is, wow, good on Candace. Yeah, good on Candace Owens. And by the way, the whole thing about, you didn't tweet this out. And she's like, I talked about it on my show. There's never enough for people who are looking for you to signal. There's never enough signals, you know? So just be yourself. Just be yourself. You don't owe anybody anything necessary. You really just don't. We'll leave it right there.